Look at this wedding photo. You see that groom standing there in his expensive suit? That's Harold Westbrook, worth $15 billion at just 37 years old. And that beautiful bride sitting in the chair. That's Mary. She's 52, 15 years older than him. The room full of people behind them. Half of them tried to stop this wedding. His mother didn't speak to him for 6 months. 3 board members threatened to quit. The internet called Mary a gold digger, even though she refused to take a penny from him. But here's what nobody in that room knew. This woman they were all judging was about to save his life. And I mean that literally. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. So I've been researching this story for weeks now, and honestly, it's one of those stories that just sticks with you. Because we've all judged someone before, right? We've all looked at a couple and thought, that doesn't make sense. Or, what's really going on there? Well, this is the story of what happens when everyone gets it wrong. When the woman the whole world judged turns out to be exactly what a broken man needed. This isn't some fairy tale. This is messy, real, and honestly pretty emotional. I'm going to take you through how they met, why everyone lost their minds when they got engaged, and what happened at that wedding you're looking at. Because trust me, that wedding day, that's when everything changed. Let's get into it. So let me tell you about Harold Westbrook. And I mean really tell you about him, not the version you'd see in Forbes or TechCrunch. Yeah, he built Tech Nova from literally nothing. Started coding in his parents' garage at 22, and by 30 he was a billionaire. The youngest self-made billionaire in tech at the time. Private jets, penthouse in San Francisco, the whole 9 yards. But here's what the success stories don't tell you. By 37, Harold was barely holding it together. I actually spoke to someone who knew him back then, his former executive assistant, who didn't want to be named. She told me that there were days he'd sit in his office for hours, just staring out the window. He was on 3 different medications for anxiety and depression. He'd had 2 failed engagements to women who, in his own words later, loved the idea of me but didn't actually know me. His typical week looked like this: 80-hour work weeks, board meetings where everyone wanted something from him, charity galas where he'd smile for cameras with whatever model his publicist set him up with, then home alone to his empty penthouse. Every single night, alone. The guy had achieved everything society tells you to achieve: money, power, success, influence. And he was absolutely miserable. His therapist later said, and this is public record from an interview Harold did, that he was showing signs of severe burnout and dissociation. He felt like he was watching his own life happen to someone else. Then in 2019, Harold started doing something weird. Every Saturday morning at 7 a.m., he'd put on a baseball cap and sunglasses, dress in jeans and a hoodie, and disappear. His security team hated it. His assistant didn't know where he went. For 6 months, he had this secret Saturday routine. Turns out he was going to the Berkeley Public Library, the old one on Shattuck Avenue, built in 1930. Not the fancy tech libraries or private collections he had access to. A regular public library that smelled like old books and floor polish. He told an interviewer later, "It was the only place where nobody knew who I was, where I could just be a person." And that's where he met Mary Chen. Mary Chen, 52 years old, been working at that library for 23 years, made $43,000 a year. Now, before you start thinking this is some kind of sugar daddy situation, let me tell you about Mary. Because this woman was not what anyone expected. She had a PhD in philosophy from UC Berkeley. Used to be a professor there until budget cuts eliminated her position in 2008. She could have gone into corporate consulting, made good money. But instead, she chose the library. She told people she preferred helping people find what they're looking for over writing papers nobody would read. She lived in a small apartment in Oakland, took care of her 78-year-old mother who had dementia, volunteered at a literacy center on weekends. Never been married, most people who knew her assumed she was just content being alone. But here's what made Mary different. She noticed things, patterns, people. So when this guy in a baseball cap started showing up every Saturday, heading straight for the philosophy section, checking out books on stoicism, existentialism, and meaning, she noticed. She told her coworker, "That man is searching for something, and it's not in those books." The first time they actually spoke, Harold was looking for Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. He was having what he later described as a full existential crisis in the philosophy aisle. Mary walked up and said, "Marcus Aurelius is great if you want to learn to endure suffering. But if you're trying to figure out why you're suffering in the first place, you might want Viktor Frankl instead. Man's Search for Meaning, aisle 7. Harold just stared at her. Nobody talked to him like that. Direct, intelligent, and completely unconcerned with being polite about it. "How did you know what I was looking for?" he asked. Mary smiled. "I'm a librarian. I know what every person who walks through that door is really searching for. And you, my friend, are not searching for books. You're searching for a reason to keep going." That hit Harold like a truck. This woman he'd never met just saw straight through him. "I'm Harold," he said. "I know," Mary replied. "The baseball cap doesn't really work, but don't worry, I'm not going to ask for an investment tip or a selfie. Everyone deserves a sanctuary." And that's how it started. They began talking, every Saturday, just talking. At first about books, then about philosophy, then about life. Mary never treated him like he was special. She'd argue with him, tell him when his ideas were half-baked, challenge him in ways nobody else did. Harold started coming earlier, staying later. Coffee turned into lunch at a little Vietnamese place Mary liked. Lunch turned into walks around Berkeley. 6 months in, Harold realized something terrifying. He was in love, not with someone his publicist would approve of, not with someone who fit his brand, but with a 52-year-old librarian who made him feel more alive than he'd felt in years. For months, Harold fought it. I mean, think about it from his perspective. He's 37, she's 52, that's 15 years. In 10 years, she'd be 62 and he'd be 47. Society had opinions about this kind of thing, and none of them were good. He talked to his therapist about it. His therapist asked him one question. "When you're with her, do you feel like yourself?" "Yes," Harold said. "For the first time in my life, I feel like myself." "Then why are you fighting it?" Mary was fighting it too, for different reasons. She'd lived a quiet life, safe, predictable. And now here was this brilliant, kind, yes, incredibly wealthy man who seemed to genuinely care about her. It scared her to death. But then something happened that changed everything. Harold's father had a stroke, massive, out of nowhere. Harold flew home to Connecticut, spent 2 weeks by his father's hospital bed. His mother was there, his sister. But Harold felt completely alone in that hospital. Except for Mary. She called him every night, not to give advice or try to fix it, just to listen, to remind him to eat, to read him poetry when he couldn't sleep. When his father finally woke up, one of the first things he asked Harold was, "Who's Mary? You kept saying her name." And Harold realized she was the person he needed in his darkest moment. Not someone beautiful for the cameras, not someone appropriate for the shareholders, the person who actually cared about him as a human being. He flew back to California and went straight to the library, found Mary at her desk, cataloging books. "Mary, I need to say something and I need you to let me finish." She looked up, and she already knew. You could see it in her face. Harold didn't give some perfect speech. He was exhausted, emotional, and honest. I don't care what anyone thinks anymore. These past 2 weeks were hell, and you were the only thing that made it bearable. You see me, the real me. Not the billionaire, not the CEO. Just me. I love you. I'm terrified, and society's going to judge us, and it's probably going to be a disaster, but I love you. And I think you love me too. Mary was crying. Harold, I'm 15 years older than you. People are going to say horrible things. Your family, your business, everyone is going to judge this. Let them, Harold said. I've spent 37 years trying to make everyone else happy. For once, I want to try making myself happy. Mary stood up, walked around the desk, and kissed him. Right there in the library in front of 3 confused college students studying for midterms. Okay, she said, let's do this. 3 months later, Harold proposed. Simple ring, nothing crazy. Mary's garden, just the 2 of them. And then he announced it. Posted a photo on Instagram with a caption, I asked, she said yes. Mary Chen, you make me happier than I knew was possible. The internet exploded. And I mean exploded. Within 24 hours, there were think pieces on every major outlet. Billionaire's midlife crisis? The age gap that broke the internet. Is this love or manipulation? But the internet trolls were nothing compared to what happened privately. Harold's board called an emergency meeting. I actually got access to the meeting notes through a source. His CFO said, quote, this relationship is creating uncertainty among shareholders. We need to consider the optics. Translation, dump her or we're out. His mother called crying. Asked what she'd done wrong as a parent. His father, still recovering from the stroke, told him he was throwing his life away. His sister stopped taking his calls, but Mary had it worse. So much worse. Random people on the internet found her Facebook, her LinkedIn, everything. They picked apart her appearance. Called her a gold digger, even though her lawyer confirmed she'd insisted on a prenup that left her with literally nothing. Someone found her PhD thesis and mocked it online, posted photos of her from college with cruel captions, created fake accounts pretending to be her. Her co-workers at the library started getting calls from tabloids. One even offered her colleague $10,000 for inside information about Mary. I talked to one of Mary's friends from the literacy center. She said, Mary would come to volunteer with red eyes from crying. She kept saying, maybe I should let him go. He deserves someone who doesn't bring him this pain. There were nights Harold would find Mary on their apartment balcony at 2 a.m., just staring at the city, wondering if they were making a huge mistake. But here's the thing about real love, it fights back. Harold called a board meeting, stood up in front of everyone and said something that got leaked to the press the next day. I built this company from nothing, made every one of you richer than you ever dreamed, and I'll keep doing my job. But I will not sacrifice my humanity for your comfort. Mary is the best thing that ever happened to me. If you can't support that, here's my resignation. Right now, your choice. Nobody said a word. Then Ellen Rodriguez, the oldest board member, started clapping. About damn time you acted like a human being, Harold. One by one, they fell in line. Not everyone. 2 board members did resign, but enough stayed. That brings us to that photo you saw at the beginning. Their wedding day. They kept it small. Mary's mother's house in Oakland. About 50 people. But Harold insisted on one thing. He wanted everyone who doubted them there. His family, his board members, even some of the harshest critics. Mary thought he was crazy. Why would we invite people who hate us? Harold said, because I want them to see what they almost destroyed. The ceremony was in the garden. Mary walked herself down the aisle because, in her words, "I'm 52 years old. I don't need anyone to give me away." The moment captured in that photo? That was right after they said their vows. Harold was standing. Mary was sitting. She'd insisted because she said standing for a long ceremony in a wedding dress at 52 was not happening. And right before they kissed, Harold turned to the room and said something unscripted. "Everyone in this room told us this wouldn't work, that we were too different, that the age gap mattered, that I was having a crisis. But here's what none of you understood. Mary saved my life. Not figuratively, literally. Before I met her, I was planning my exit strategy from everything, including living. She gave me a reason to stay." The room went silent. His mother started crying. Even the skeptical board members looked uncomfortable. Then Harold knelt down next to Mary's chair, took her hand and said, "You're not my midlife crisis. You're my whole life starting over." That photo, the one with "Why her" written across the top, it became iconic. Because Harold later posted it himself with that exact caption, then answered it. "Why her? Because she's brilliant. Because she challenges me. Because she sees me as a human being, not a bank account. Because at 52, she has more wisdom, kindness, and strength than anyone I've ever met. Because age is just a number, but character is forever. That's why her." 5 years later, Harold is 42 and Mary is 57. They're still together, still in love. Harold restructured his entire company based on conversations with Mary. Technova now focuses on ethical AI, has the highest employee satisfaction in Silicon Valley, and doubled in value. Mary started a foundation for older women going back to school. They've helped over 10,000 women get degrees. Last month, Harold's mother publicly apologized in an interview, said she was wrong, that Mary was the best thing that ever happened to her son. But here's my favorite part of this story. Last year, at a tech conference, a young entrepreneur asked Harold for advice. Harold said, "Find someone who sees you, not your success. And when you find them, don't let society's timeline dictate your happiness." That wedding photo still gets shared thousands of times. People still ask, "Why her?" But anyone who knows their story knows the real question is, why did it take Harold 37 years to find someone who actually loved him for him? So next time you see a couple that doesn't make sense to you, maybe ask yourself, do you know their story? Do you know what they found in each other? Because Harold and Mary taught us that love doesn't care about your age, your bank account, or what anyone else thinks looks right. It just cares about two people who make each other better. If this story hit you the way it hit me, subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me what you thought. And remember, your happiness doesn't need anyone's permission. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.